gender dysphoria. I remember the first time I heard that. I had to look the word up. And once I looked it up, I understood its meaning and where it came from. It made sense in the way it was being used. But that enters into a discussion about the identity of children. And I know that's an area where you and your colleagues at CWA, an area for which you do a lot of thinking, where you do a lot of work. What about gender disquality? What about all of this discussion about children's identity?
Well, yeah, and that's such an important area because the threat to our children is really in molding their minds and hearts right now is what's at stake. Going back just briefly to the issue of erasing women, whenever we deny or erase the protected category based on our maleness or femaleness, we do erase protections for women. Women have had to have elevated protections in our society. We just had the 19th Amendment, of course, and celebrated the right to vote. But again, in places and spaces and facilities, that's so important. And what's happening now in our schools with our children is we're affirming their notions of themselves that depart from their true biology. Children are getting confused today because of curriculum in the schools. Some of them have dysphoria because of things that they may have experienced in their home lives or other things that are going on, their traumas in their own childhoods. But also we've got a lot of social media and other messages coming to them. And so gender dysphoria is really a psychological reality of a strong feeling against, that's incongruent with your biological sex. But what we're doing today now is instead of treating that as a psychological condition, we're suggesting that it requires medical treatments of your physical body. And that's the harm, the danger, and the real threat that we see toward marching toward the future on these issues.
You know, Doreen, one of the areas that is really tied into gender dysphoria is in the area of sports today, and especially with trans women. And, of course, if our listeners are not familiar with that term, that talks about those who are really biological men. But with trans women participating in women's sports. And my question to you is that from the biblical worldview, what is the right approach and who is it that has the most to lose in this? The men or the women or children or who else in society?
Well, I think we all have a lot to lose. But you're exactly right. You're pointing out the importance of recognizing that our sex-based distinctions, physiologically, biologically, things that are immutable, that they're really unchangeable. Every chromosome in your body is defining your identity, your physical anatomy, and your sexual identity. And so when we get into the area of the consequences, and these are not hypothetical consequences with, the possible passage of an Equality Act, which would throw open our facilities, spaces, public spaces to saying any man could walk into a women's restrooms at any time if he says he's a woman. But these are actually looking at the consequences right now that are happening in our culture, and they include the sports fields. We have girls at high school and college levels who have been forced to compete against biological men identifying as women. These are individuals that previously, in just the years prior, competed as the men that they were on men's teams. And by taking a few hormones, in some cases there's not even a standard to take anything. It's just, this is the way I feel. They're now saying, well, they're entering into rostering them on women's teams in female athletics. This is patently unfair for girls. Female bodies are designed differently. Physiologically, even a year of hormone treatments for a male body does not mitigate the differences that come through puberty, through just the lung capacity, the bone density that is natural, that starts really in the womb. And so this is, we're working very hard. In fact, we're working with a lot of women, not on a faith-based basis. Many of them are radical feminists. Many of them are in sports. We've just sent a letter with athletes, over 300 athletes, to the NCAA saying that they need to change their policy. But this is, we can't really deny girls today the idea that they have a fair playing field or a fair shot at their goals and their dreams, because any male could come in at any point and say that he's feeling like a female, or maybe he's taken steps that he truly identifies this way. But that doesn't change the advantage that would happen in sports, and so we have got to reclaim the rights of Title IX for female athletes.